Welcome back to the Launch Party Podcast, where we want to lift off into stratospheric success and take you along for the ride. We are back in the rhythm of things. This is our third episode in the past few days here, and we're happy to be busting these out. And we've got a guest on. We haven't had a guest in a couple episodes here, and this should be a good one. We're going to be a little bit improvised here. We don't have too much prepared in the way of like scripts or anything like that. But I mean, that's what gets views online nowadays anyways, right? So, Danny, how's it going?
It's going well. Yes, we're getting back into the swing of things. Today we have one of my good friends, my old roommate, Anthony Jones, joining us for the podcast. We're going to take a little bit of a dive into what it's like transitioning into that college to career stage in life, some tips and tricks for navigating the career and job portal, and just, dive into things and see where this goes. Me and Anthony and myself, we met my freshman year, your sophomore year, right, Jones, of college.
Yep.
He was the PCP, which means, let's say, new class president for the fraternity. And so he had a lot of responsibilities and leadership early on. But it was a good time. It was good to meet him. Like I said, we lived together this past semester and this past year. And thanks for joining us, Anthony. How are you doing? We haven't caught up in a little bit. How's life been?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Excited. I've been watching your podcast. Life's
The
been good.
clips.
Yeah, all the clips and whatnot. It's been exciting. It's been a weird 3-4 months. It's been stressful. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of share a little bit about it because it kind of hits you pretty quick once you're out of college, and there's a lot that I wish I knew 4 months ago.
Yeah.
But it's been good. Just enjoying time, working too much, but yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. You're welcome. Thanks for being here. And I'm about to head into that stage myself, and Esteban's been through it too in a slightly different context. But let's start at the beginning, Jones. Anthony Jones. Where are you from? What were your parents like? You have a twin brother. What was your family like? What was it like growing up?
Yeah, no, I was definitely blessed with a good family. Definitely so many people have hard childhoods and divorces and tough families, but I was fortunate enough that I grew up in a good household, a really healthy family. I have a twin, always really smart, an older brother that was always really smart. That was kind of something what really shaped me was that I was kind of competing with two really smart people that went to Georgia and got 4.0s, and one of them does coding and computer science, and I'm the sales guy. But I had a pretty normal childhood. Always really competitive with my brothers, which I think is probably what's made me be a pretty successful salesman. It's a lot of competition. Sports has been a really big part of my life since I was young. Since I was 5, I was always doing something, either it's baseball or golf, really anything. And that's kind of what my career is now, which we'll get into it more. But
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Alpharetta, Atlanta,
Okay.
Georgia. My family's all from the Northeast, up in Boston, Mass. But I was an Atlanta boy. I hate Atlanta sports, but it's a new topic. But yeah, that's really it. And I think you'll see as I tell my story and what I'm doing now later, you'll kind of see how it all comes from my childhood, which I think is pretty common with people.
Yeah, so Anthony was a pretty good golf player. How about go into a little bit your golf journey and what lessons have you learned from that? How have you grown from playing golf pretty competitively, and has that transitioned into like leadership and sales and your career for, the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's the two parts of golf, and I've kind of always said this, and my coach has always said this. So there's a physical part, which we don't really need to get into because it's not what this podcast is about. But then there's the mental part, which has done wonders for me in life. Growing up, I played baseball, and I was the kid that would strike out, throw his bat, throw a tantrum, and was always just a nutcase. And when I switched to golf because I had a heart condition when I was a sophomore in high school, said I couldn't play baseball anymore, find a new sport. it's the least physical exerting sport in the world is golf.
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing golf. And like from day one, my coach, who could see that I was a little nuts up here, taught me patience. And like the biggest thing that he's ever taught me is when things are not going your way, whether it's in a round of golf, but obviously for life, is you have to you got to stay calm. You got to think about, think about your next shot, or think about the next thing you're going to do in life. Nothing's perfect. No one's ever played a perfect round of golf. No one's ever done life perfect. So I think staying patient is something I taught. Staying calm. I mean, you've seen it. If anyone's ever watched a PGA Tour player, it's like the minute they have a bad shot, if they do lose their mind, usually the rest of the round goes south. It's just kind of how the human brain is made. But when it comes to the little bit of physical golf, is I played a lot in high school. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship at Mississippi State. Was not there long.
Mm-hmm.
Was knew from day one that I was never the next Jordan Spieth, or and it was tough. You go from being the best kid in high school to being a nobody, and I obviously was not there long enough. But I had to kind of change my whole life from there to Georgia Southern. I defined myself as a golfer, and then I had to define myself as Anthony Jones, the student. And I think that's where
Yeah.
I grew the most. It was hard. I wasn't allowed to play golf for a really long time. They told me I couldn't play baseball when I was in high school for health stuff, so I definitely had a
Mm-hmm.
little identity crisis. Moving to a different school, I had no friends. Just kind of why I did the whole PCP thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wanted an identity, a role of some sort. So yeah.
Yeah, we keep hitting on that in this podcast. It's whether it's college or the army or something else outside of when you graduate high school. It's like kids nowadays, 18 years old means nothing. You're still a child, and you really need some time. And college is a good break to be able to grow and mature and figure out, like you said, who is Anthony Jones and why am I here and what am I good at? And if I can't play golf anymore, it's like, well, then what, So college
Hmm.
is definitely a really good time for that.
And I
But
think you see
Esteban,
that. Sorry,
go
you see
ahead.
that in athletes all the time. Like
Mm-hmm.
at the
Mhm.
top level, you always hear about the projected number one pick. This first round talent that has a heart, like Bronny James. Like ever since he had a heart attack, he's not that same guy. There's all those
Yeah.
guys. Oh, I had one bad knee injury, and I went from my life set. I'm going to the NFL. Everything's fine. To okay, like what the hell am I good at? Like I need to find something new to do now. But keep going.
Yeah, and we see that a lot with athletes after they retire or get burnt out or can't play anymore for health reasons. A lot of them don't even know what to do with their lives and end up just spending a whole bunch of money and then ending up depressed and
Mhm.
not and then not really having a life anymore, even though they made millions of dollars for a decade. They just spent it all away because they didn't have anything else. It's like sports was it. But I do want to get back to golf because Esteban played high school golf. We were having
Yeah,
this conversation earlier.
it's
What
funny.
I think, go ahead.
I made the exact same transition you did, which is from baseball to golf, and definitely is it's a stick and ball sport,
Mm-hmm.
and you're still swinging, and when you first start golfing as a baseball player, you want to keep your front foot down because you're so used to lifting it
Uh,
when
Yeah.
you're hitting a pitch, but a lot of people will say golf is boring for this. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing with golf is there's not a whole lot going on, and it really is an individual sport. So when you do play for a team, like in high school or college, you're going to basically add up everyone's scores, and that's how you compete. But when you're on the course, it's you versus you, and
Mm-hmm.
what that does for you psychologically, you could say the same thing about sports like maybe tennis or fighting, where you don't have a big team to depend on. Like you got to hit your shot. Is what that does is it forces you to take control over everything. Like everything is in your control. If you sliced it, it was your fault. If you topped the ball, you messed up. If you three putted, you should have two putted, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yes, it's a big sense of pressure, but what it also allows you to do is just zone in on your game and really feel like you have more authority over the success that you're having out there. Because there's never going to be a situation where I mean, unless you're playing with a really big team where the pitcher goes on the mound and blows a 10-run lead, and you're just sitting there on the bench watching wondering what's going on. A little quote I got from a good friend who played college golf. He also went to Mississippi State. I don't know if you would know him. He didn't play for Mississippi State, but one time he was really really good. I mean, he can shoot under par anywhere you take him, and he told me that his one of his best golf coaches had him do something where every round, what he would do is he would write down the score of what he shot on the hole, but then above that, on that same scorecard, he would give himself a score from 1 to 5 of how well he stuck to his process. So he has a
Okay.
process every single shot, like his routine, his focus. Where is he aiming? How is he going to shoot? What's his approach going to be? And in golf, when your process starts getting messed up, when you start getting in your head, that's when you start hitting balls in the rough. Whereas if your process is dialed and you just let your game do its thing, you're gonna shoot some low scores. So he told me he would what he at the end of the round, his coach would scratch out the actual score, and the only thing that they would look at is the process. How well did he focus in on what he was doing? And I was like, dang, dude, that's crazy. I never thought of it that way. So the reason why I bring all this up is because a lot of people like to say golf is boring. Oh, da da da. But I mean, truth is, if you actually go out there on the course, it'll give you a sense of striving for something, and a sense of
Hmm.
like having to really perfect a craft that you might have never experienced before. And especially if you start playing competitively, it's going to do a whole lot for you personally as well.
Yeah, it's the only sport in the world that's considered a physical sport that's, in my opinion, 70% mental. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, yeah, you have to know how to hit a golf ball, but that's the difference. And you could ask, I mean, Walker Carey, I know, was on this podcast not that long ago, and
Yep.
he's one of the best golfers that I've gotten to be around. And it's all mental. It doesn't really matter, like the next level, the difference of high school to college, and obviously college to pro. It's mostly the mental side. There's thousands of people that can shoot under par, and if you ask any of the pros, their caddies, most of the time their caddies go out and play and they shoot like 67s. They're just as good, but when you get to the down to business, the mental side of it, or when things start to go south, and golf is a sport that at some point it's going to go south. Like you can play some, like in football, like if you're like an offensive lineman, if you're really, really, really talented and you're really good at it, usually things don't go south. Like usually the guys that don't let up sacks never let up sacks. But when it comes to golf, when things go south, there's so few people, which is why there's so few pros that have the mental side. I don't have the mental side. Walker would probably admit, like I don't. It's tough. It takes. They have sports psychologists. There's this whole. It's you versus you, which is a really good point. And I always approach golf with kind of two mindsets. It's me versus me, and I can control to the best ability what's going to happen. And then there's it's a little cheesy because you hear like, the Tom Brady's of the world say it. But when I would go play someone in high school, it was, I don't care if you're my friend. I don't care if we hit balls together all the time. If we had times I would play someone that had the same golf coach as me. It was, you're not my friend. The minute, like from hole 1 to hole 18, I don't care what you do. I don't care what happens to you, and I'm going to beat you, and I want to rub it in your face at the end of it. Like there has to
All
be
right,
that
MJ.
mindset. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheesy because that's what the greats do, and you very few of them get the chance to do that on a big stage. But I think that's huge because in life, not just golf, it's like, yes, we're all here together, we're all
It's a
friends, but
game.
at the end of the day, we're all in a game, we're all competing, and I want to make more money than you. I want to be happier than you. I wish you the best, but there is a point where it's like it's you versus you. It's also you versus everybody. But I like what you said about that. And with golf, there's a process, and you do your best to stick with it. But the best golfers are the ones that can completely go away from that process and then get back to it, which is, I mean, I can't do it. So it's so hard to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
were talking about this the other day. You guys will probably agree with me. I think golf, to play at the elite top tier level, is the most difficult sport in the
Oh
world, at
yeah.
least of the major sports, because the margin of error for every single shot is so slim that it means everything, and you're walking 18 holes a day for 3 days straight, and you're doing 3 to 5 shots a hole, and every single one of those shots has literally the slimmest margin of error. You just can't make a mistake for days, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy.
it's why there's the very few that you like, the Spieths and the Tigers. There's not many that you consistently hear for more than 3 years on the PGA Tour.
That's
People
true.
don't think about it.
Mhm.
You just hear about the ones that are really good, like the four of them, right?
Unless they
It
got bought out by Live.
it's yes, unless now things are changing because you can just be rich, not play well. But like for example, Rory. Rory
Mhm.
was dominant. I mean, he won before he was like 20 something years old. He won like four majors, whatever. Yeah, he's still relevant, but if you look, Rory hasn't done anything in 10 years, major wise. Like he was known to be one of the greatest people to like human beings to ever pick up a golf club, and he's not winning. Like to put that into perspective, he was at a time the next Tiger Woods, the next generational Michael Jordan, Brady, and he hasn't won in 10 years a major tournament. Like it's such a hard sport to play at a high level, and like you said, there's such a small margin of error. It's almost you have to be perfect to be the best. And you can be perfect sometimes and you can still lose, which is the only sport that happens in.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But that's a good segue into you were talking about that motivation and that values and kind of even ethics. Jones, for you and in your life, maybe it comes from your parents or your philosophy or religion. Where does your motivation and your values come from, do you think?
Yeah, it's split. So I know how I just said like I'm gonna beat you. Like life's a competition.
Yeah, nothing
But
else matters.
right, but my biggest value and what I've had my whole life is friends and family. Um, like the two things that are irreplaceable. You know, like you can't replace great friends. You can't replace even a bad family. You can't replace family. That's your
Yeah.
family. And my values from a young age, it was always, I mean, I was religious. It was always a Christian background. But it was always, and I said this in my interviews, people ask me, first question, hey, like, what's one thing you really believe in? And
Hmm.
and I say, like, yeah, we learned it in kindergarten, but no one could do it. But if you respect people and you treat them with respect, 99.9% of the time, they're going to respect you. And that's like my biggest value. Just treat other people the way you want to be treated, which is, again, which they tell you that when you're like 4 years old, but
Yeah.
it's huge. It's everything. I mean, it's how you get jobs. It's how you get promotions. It's how you get people to like you. It's how you get to go to sweet events and do all the cool things in life that you see older people doing. It's not because, I mean, rarely, but it's not because they're like doing it from their job or from, they're buying it. It's usually that they know someone because they treated someone right at one point in their life. And it all comes back around. Now your buddy's taking you to, I don't know, a football game through his company or something like that, or a vacation through something he won. He can't go, but
Mhm.
you're his friend and you always treat him the right way, and now you get to go. So I think that's important. Family, you can't replace it. Like I said, I think no matter how bad a family is, you have to do your best to keep it, to keep it as well as possible. I know there's obviously cases where you just can't, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, and like hopefully you're blessed enough to have great friends, and I can say with full confidence that the friends that I have, from college and especially high school since kindergarten, they're always going to be there. But there's a lot of people where if you lose your family, that's all you have. Because a lot of people have friends that aren't good friends, and it takes a long time to realize it. And then one day it's okay. All I have is my family, so you should probably keep them around. Um, but but when you say values, beliefs, it's my biggest thing is just treating people the right way. Um, Everything's a connection. My job that I have now, I don't deserve. I mean, I'll say it. I went to Georgia Southern. My GPA is decent. Um, I have a job that is well above my intellectual level, but I treated someone really, really nice for my entire life. I always respected them, and one day I knew they had this connection to my job, and I asked them, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what, like I will help you because you're not a piece of shit. So like, let me help you, and it worked out. And again, I wouldn't be where I am right now if I treated people like garbage my whole life.
Yeah. Network is your net worth. And we keep
Mm-hmm.
harping on that. And another thing there that you pointed at subtly is he had this connection, and Anthony asked for some
Mm.
help. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door will open. Seek and you shall find. You can't just sit back. See, people think you got to get lucky to be successful. It's like, no, you got to situate yourself to have the highest probability of success. And then when the situation comes along, you got to be able to be smart enough and competent enough to capitalize on your on the thing that's going on so you can
Mm-hmm.
benefit from it. You can't just sit around and do nothing. But we'll get to your job, Jones. I want to go back real quick to Georgia Southern. Why'd you go to Georgia Southern? Why'd you decide to major in what you wanted to major? And I think you kind of alluded to it a little bit. And then how was your experience there in college?
Yeah. So real quick, just because I don't want to forget about what you just said about
Yeah, go
asking.
ahead. Go ahead.
It's a very, very selfish world. It's natural for humans to be selfish. So although someone might actually genuinely care about you and want you to succeed, and they have the key to the door to let you succeed, there's the human mind is selfish. You have to ask. They're not thinking about you. You know what I mean? Like, I love you, Danny, and you're one of my really good friends, but am I thinking about you? No. You have to
Yeah,
reach
yeah,
out to me,
yeah.
or I have to reach out to you, and then I'm thinking about you, and then I do whatever to help you.
Hmm.
Now, off of that,
And people tend to be willing to help too if you just
yeah,
ask.
if you're a good person, there's maybe on my hand, there's very few people, 3 or 4 people in this
Hmm.
life that if they said, "Hey, I really need help," that I wouldn't help. And it's a really small number when you think about how many people like you run into. But when it comes to Georgia Southern, I transferred to Georgia Southern. Wanted to be in Georgia. Didn't want to go to Georgia State because it was a little too close to home. Same with Kennesaw.
Yeah,
Georgia Southern's a lot of fun. I knew a couple people down there that went to our high school, like in our fraternity.
yeah.
So I was like, let's do that. It's far enough from home where I don't feel like I'm like in my parents' backyard. But if I need to go home, I can go home. That was that. When I got there, and I've been pretty open about this, that first 3 to 6 months was the hardest 3 to 6 months of my life. I was, like I said, identity crisis. I had literally one person kind of to text when I was down there. I was living in a dorm basically with myself. I had some kid that I saw like twice. I mean, people would say that I had a dungeon of a room, and like I was just in the dark all the time. I didn't know what I was gonna do. Um, and I joined a fraternity, and not that a fraternity, saved my life, 'cause that would sound stupid, but I mean, it did change my life. It didn't save my life, it changed my life. I had friends. I got a little source of confidence. I was at an all-time
Hmm.
low. I thought I had a career in doing something with golf or something like that. And then I was like, well, what am I? Like, I'm a loser. I have nothing. But the fraternity kind of gave me people, confidence, friends, a, a, an identity, a place. So I hated it first. And then the next 3.5 years, wouldn't change a
Yeah.
thing. Um, I had a great time. I loved it. I made amazing relationships. Um, you know, I'm outside of that, I don't really know, but I had great relationships. I had a lot of fun. A job I loved that I got
Uh-huh.
fired from, but it happens. Met new people, made friends, lost friends.
Why did you get let go from Blue?
Uh, I wanted to go see my friend that was in the military before he got shipped out, and
Huh.
I told him 2 weeks in advance that, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to go see my friend. And they gave it me off. And then the day that I was leaving, they scheduled me for 2 shifts. And they're like, sorry, if you don't come, you're fired. Thought they were bluffing. They weren't bluffing. And That's what, again, one of those things where it comes to your values and who you are as a person. And seeing my friend before the military wouldn't change it. If you could tell me I could go back and say no and go work to keep my job, I would never do it. There's way more important things in life, and it's relationships, friends, and family.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, the Blue Room is a bar slash club scene place where it's pretty cutthroat in terms of a lot of people want to work there, especially guys. It's very difficult to get a bartending position unless you are a good looking female, let's say. So
Or
yeah,
male.
that's kind of the context of that situation.
Yeah.
But why did you end up doing marketing with an emphasis on sales?
Yes. Yeah. So it's a
What brought you
marketing
towards
degree.
that?
Honestly, when I was 15, I was playing a round of golf with my dad and a random old man, and at a course called Callahan Links, if anyone's ever heard of it. And the guy was like, "Oh, you're a good golfer, but if it doesn't work out, you should like look into sales." I was like, "Okay, whatever, boomer." And he was like, "Here's my car. I sell airplane parts, like private airplane parts." I kind of wish I had his car. I lost it because I would probably some serious money in that industry. But he just kept talking. Hey, you have really good social skills, and you have something to you that people want to be around you, and people want to talk to you. And obviously, saying that out loud sounds like an ego problem, but I do think that I'm someone that like people come to when they need help or feel okay to open up to or feel
Where do you
comfortable
think that
around.
comes from? Or how did you develop that?
Um, I I I want to say what my mom says, which is that her dad, who died when I was pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
was the same way. He was just like,
So you think it's
so,
genetic almost? It's
yeah,
ingrained
almost.
in you
I
a little
don't
bit?
know the science behind that, but she always says, and then like all my relatives that knew him are like, man, you're like a reincarnated version of your grandpa. Like he just always liked to be center of the room and talking to people and bring the energy and all of that. And I'm not so much bring the energy as I might have used to. I kind of like to sit back now a little bit more. But I think that's where it's but then I also have a very outgoing, uh, not introvert, extroverted. That's the right
Mm-hmm.
word, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
extroverted
extroverted.
family that was always doing things. I was never the kid that was, sitting in my room playing video games, and there's nothing wrong with any of that, Danny. But that wasn't what I enjoyed. I like to go and talk to people and be out doing things, and literally whoever would talk to me and give me like the slightest little bit of attention, that's what I wanted to do. And I think it just grows over
So
time.
you like
Just
attention, would you say?
yeah, I've had to deal with at
Do you
one point in my
strive for
life.
it?
No, so I did, and I'd say it was
Mm-hmm.
more in high school, but it was when you strive for attention, it turns into negative attention.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to humble yourself and you have to realize the negatives. And I loved the negative attention. I was always the kid that would stand up in 11th grade and do something stupid so that the whole room would look at me and the teacher would look at me, and
Class
that's
clown
negative.
type.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And now as I've gotten a little older,
Matured a little bit, maybe.
yeah, and I don't love attention. I don't like being the center of the attention anymore. I used to. I still want attention as a human being, but
Mm-hmm.
and I think like being single, I had a long relationship, and then being single for the first time where like there isn't attention, like you've all been in relationships where there's always
Mm-hmm.
an attention, a light glowing on you, and then you go from that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn.
To
Okay,
like
you don't always
nothing,
need
right?
someone. Yeah,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a beautiful feeling because you start to like love yourself a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
and realize that it's okay to just like not have someone always looking down on you with a spotlight, whether it's your friends, relationships, or family. But no, I think now I tend to sit back because I've realized the most important thing is listening. That's how you grow. That's how you
Yep.
climb up the ladder almost.
That's what we're trying to
Is
do here.
Yeah, is listen, right?
Launching.
People listen to your podcast, and especially when you start a career right now, it's like step one, humble yourself. You're not that guy. You're 23. Everyone in that building is higher than you for a reason, right? They've earned it.
Yeah.
So you just humble yourself no matter how great you were in college and high school. And I think that's really hard for some people. And then two, just be a sponge. Listen, stop talking. You're 23. You don't know what's going on. I have no idea what's going on in my company half the time. I have to listen. I'm like, yo, I sent out an email today. It was the most humbling thing I've ever done. I sent out the email to like 24 people, and I was like, hey, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing. I'd like to be successful. Can I shadow you? Can I come and listen to a call? And it sucked because it was basically saying, hey, I'm not smart enough to be
Yeah,
doing
that's
this right
actually
now, and I need
great
help.
career advice right there.
Yeah,
Ask to
reach
shadow,
out.
ask to listen in, take notes, definitely take notes, and just ask to learn. And your team will know that. First off, you'll actually learn something because you'll be doing shit.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, everyone will acknowledge that and understand that you're there to grind and you actually care about what's going on here.
They'll respect it, and everyone likes to have their ass kissed every once in a while, and that basically is me saying, hey, you're successful, and I really think you're the shit. So I'd like to like sit back and watch you. And people love that. The human nature, what a human breaks is that they love affection. They love, feeling important. And like the minute you do that, they're gonna start liking you more. And in 3 years, they're gonna be the person that's promoting me. So like might as well get them to
Yeah,
like me. Yeah.
especially in sales
Right.
where it's an ever evolving craft,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very much a skill thing and not just an input output thing. And yeah, sales guys like getting the hype up. If you tell them, hey, I mean, you seem like a killer, and I want to learn from you. And I remember talking about this on the Walker episode. Culture fit is everything in sales. So if you can show people that you're about it and that you're serious about learning and you're hungry, they're gonna think, okay, Anthony's a culture fit. This guy, like, this is our type of guy. And half the time, and then not always, but half the time that goes just as far as actual production. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, on that note, if you're ready to dive into what that job
Well,
is,
hold on. I
and
got one more question, Jones,
okay,
and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. But I
Let it
think
rip.
it will be helpful for especially people our age. Like we have friends that are just now getting into more intimate relationships with their partner, and like you said, you were in a long-term relationship. I just want to know, like, what have you learned through that process? Is there of being in a long-term relationship? Is there something that you wish you had known going into it? Any advice? Or just the ways you've grown throughout that? I mean, I can kind of speak on that a little bit too, but
Yeah. Oh wow. No one's asked me that since forever. First of all, and I think that it's important. Anyone says this, no matter how great or bad a relationship was, never look back at it and wish it didn't happen. There's never been a day, where I was like, I wish I never did any of that, because that's how you grow. You look back and sure, there was things that I did wrong. There's things that the other person did wrong, but you start to realize the negatives of yourself and why things might have gone wrong, and that's huge. I mean, that's growth. That's making your next relationship better. What was the other part of the question?
yeah, I mean, it's not all for nothing, but something that you learn, something you wish you knew, let's say, going
Oh
into a
yeah, okay.
long-term relationship.
Yeah, the biggest thing, two things. The first one is never try to like change who you're dating. As in, if you don't love the person because of who they are, then
You're not going
and
to change
that's
them.
yeah, and I don't want to say like I that sounds bad. That's not what I'm saying. I wouldn't, but
I got you.
right. But you understand that like
You can't change
you
people. They
you
got to
can't
want
change
it
them.
themselves.
They gotta want it, and you have to fall in love with the person that isn't changing, if that makes sense. Like the person that's who they are, and if they're not the right person, they're not the right person. I wish I knew that because, and I will at some point probably apologize, but I was always pushing and pushing and pushing someone to be one way or the other, and she did it to me. So like, totally, I think we'd agree on that. But the second thing is being really open to what that person has, which comes with not wanting them to like not don't change them. At one point in mine, like I grew up, I was sports, sports, and sports. Okay, that's all I watched. That's all I cared about. and I didn't want to, widen my horizon or learn anything new. And having a girlfriend, like, she was really into YouTube videos, okay, like, like celebrities, which most girls are.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to admit it. I fucking loved them. They were awesome, dude. We're watching, Emma Chamberlain and saying like they're kind of entertaining, and you start to realize like, okay, there's more out there that you can learn from other people. But yeah, like that's really it. Just like widen your horizon. I wish I was more open to that. I was always fighting to adjust, to adapt, and to learn more. So if I could change one thing, that'd be it for
hmm
sure.
And I definitely agree. You can't force people to change, like whether it is about addiction or just the way people act towards people. They gotta want it. They gotta find it within them to make the change. You can't change
Hmm.
people, but then at the same time, I think this is kind of what love is to an extent. It's like I know what and who this person can become, and that's what you fall in love with. You fall in love with that journey and that in the potential of what y'all can become together and how you guys can get better together, and then what can be manifested with that.
Right. Yeah, it's all love is interesting, man. That
And it hurts. Yeah.
sorry to anyone that listened to me talk about that. Danny asked it, not me. All right, moving
Uh-huh.
on.
Anyways, all right, Jones, you're getting into your career. Let's just real quick, what has that transition been like from college to
So
being a
now,
grown up, let's say?
so from the start, before I had a job, I guess you could say you have to be so open to failure. It's crazy. I like literally thought I was the biggest loser. I mean, because you get out and you're looking for a job, and in my case, I left school. All my friends from high school all had great corporate jobs. All my friends from college were still having fun in college, still are, but at least I have a job now. And, I wasn't in a relationship, so I wasn't getting affection from that part of my brothers both had these great jobs. My parents were both working every day, so I was literally sitting there with my dog like I'm the biggest loser. And you have to realize that failure is the most important thing in the world. If there's like one thing that someone listens to on this podcast, it said, if you never fail, you will never be successful. And you hear that all the time. And Danny, you've said that on here, both of you have. But I failed over and over. Like, I had over 30, I think it was 37 different calls. Not so much interviews, some were interviews, some were just calls, where it seemed like everything was great, and I'm going to be in Chicago in 2 weeks, and everything's
hmm
great. And
hmm
then I failed. And then, hey, you know what? We're going to go a different route. And I was like, damn, like, so you have to stay resilient. You have to fail, but you have to stay resilient. And I just kept calling. And when you're in that part of your life, I know, Danny, you already have a job, so thankfully you won't have to do this part, but maybe at some point you
I
will.
mean, I did, yeah.
When you have that first interview, and let's say you don't get it, first thing I did, hey, if this opens up again, I would really love to be part of this. Thank you so much for giving me a chance. This is what I want. Like, I'd like to prove you wrong. They love it. I did that, and like, they're like, wow,
Yeah.
thank you. That I respect that. But whenever you talk to someone, whether it's a interview or just a phone call, ask them who they know. Hey, you're at, for example, I was talking to Hulu
Networking.
Sports. Yeah, and at the end of the Hulu Sports call, I'm like, hey, like, I hope this isn't inappropriate, but it wasn't an interview, it was just a call with someone that I talked, like, got connected with. You're in the sports media world. Do you know anyone? Oh, yeah, I know someone at ESPN. Okay, I called ESPN, talked to her. Oh, you don't have a job for me? Okay, do you know anyone in the sports world? Yes, I know someone at NBC Sports. I am now, that's where I work now. Like, but I mean, there was a lot in between there. But
hmm
so that transition, there was a lot of failure, a lot of resiliency, a lot of phone calls, and people pleasing and kissing ass. and it sucks. It's demoralizing. You kind of feel like a loser. To a more positive note, then you trust the process, keep grinding. Everyone gets a job. It's hard, especially a 23-year-old. I just recently accepted a job I just had my first week at NBC Universal, and I'm in the NBC sports sector doing sales and marketing associate. And I love it. It's my dream. I'm gonna get to go to all the games and take clients to Bears game. I'm going to Chicago. I'm leaving 2 weeks. But it's my dream. I'm selling sports. I'm going to sporting events. I'm meeting with people that are important. I'm talking to people. I get to go to a new city. It's terrifying, but I'm absolutely horrified to go to Chicago. Like I said, I have great friends here. I don't want to leave, but you have to leave. You can always come. You can always come home. You can't always leave. So I'm like,
Yeah,
let's just do it.
that's true.
Let's go meet new
Fire.
people. Yeah, you can always thankfully, again, I have a great family. Like, I can always come home. I can't always leave. I don't always have a great opportunity to go do my dream job in a new city by myself. But I'll get up there, and you know what? Now I'm gonna have connections in Chicago and Atlanta, and
Mhm.
that's doubling my network. And like you said, network is network. So that's my job. It's in a non-boring. There's the whole data analytical side of it, which I'll do, which is
What's your role called?
sales
Like,
and marketing associate.
okay,
So in a simplified version, if you're Chick-fil-A
sure.
and you want a commercial so my big project right now, which is why they're kicking my ass and it's a lot, is the Olympics. Because NBC
Hmm.
Sports, that we're the Olympics, which is the biggest event that we do. It's the biggest event in the world. And if you're Chick-fil-A and you want 30 seconds in the Olympics, I do the sale aspect of it.
Hmm.
But the data side of it is I go in and after you have to use last year's Olympics, obviously for things like Saturday Night Live we do or the Jimmy Fallon show, they can use every week's numbers. But I go in, I see, okay, well at 4:30 during swimming or whatever at the last Olympics, this was the viewing of that network, and it's going to be a lot of money. Like, this is our price range because this is where everyone's watching. But, oh, you want the 3 a.m. one that's ski shooting? Okay, well, the data shows I can give this to you a little cheaper, Chick-fil-A. And then I sell them, and then it's a client relationship. And I have to guarantee the hardest part, which is why you have to do the data well. I have to guarantee if you buy this at this time, this is how many views at a minimum you will get. And if it doesn't happen, then there's obviously price deductions and a lot of shit that goes into it. So that's the data, and then there's the selling of the data.
So
And
essentially, you're making projections in terms of
yeah,
what the customer can expect to get in terms of eyeballs to their ad.
I don't want to say making projections because there's a lot smarter people that do that, but I'm reading the projections, I
I
guess,
see.
analyzing the projections of it. Yes,
Okay, like kind of chewing them up for them and presenting them.
correct. Yes, so
Okay,
that because the really smart people that are much smarter than me, they can make the numbers. I
and
can't
then
do that.
you're
Like,
the
they're
face
not
of the numbers.
right. They're not the
Okay.
human people. They don't really know how to talk to a human about those numbers. They would just be nerds like Danny, for example.
How does that work in terms of like lead flow and getting like client acquisition?
Hmm.
What does that look like that whole process from a customer like not even knowing who you guys are to then being like on the phone or on Zoom with you?
Good question.
I think that is a great question. So there's no matter what sales job you have, there's always you got to find leads. You have to prospect.
Hmm.
The beauty of my job, the reason that I love it and that is like a dream job of mine is you can't go anywhere in the world without someone knowing what NBC Sports is. And it's not so much that I have to find them. A lot of time there is when it's not the Olympics and it's not Sunday night football and it's baseball season, which is a big sport, but it's not, you know,
Right.
up there. That's when it's more, hey, I'm prospecting. I'm using leads. For example, I just go, it's as easy as this. I'll be scrolling on Instagram and scrolling. Oh, there's an ad. It was PXG irons, okay, like the golf brand. I was like, let me see if anyone has a PXG account, and they didn't. So I put it onto an Excel sheet, and I'm gonna call them in a couple of days. And like,
Nice.
you can kind of just pick whatever you want, any brand. And I say it's sports, but I'm selling for the sporting events. I'm not selling the sports, if that makes sense. Like I said, I can sell. If you made a company and you had enough money one day, like I can just grab your, I don't know, weed killing company, like weeds and grass, not the drug.
Uh-huh.
But they're right now, the time that I'm in, and I don't know too much because I am new. It's really easy because there's not a company in the world that doesn't want to be in the Olympics. You know what I mean? Like it's the most worldwide views you can get. You can't. There's
Nice.
no commercial slot like the Olympics. So right now, I don't think it's the norm. It's more they're calling us at this point, but I'm sure as the Olympics passes, it'll be a little harder to find leads and prospects. But my job is such a broad thing. Some people just sell phones, some people just sell, which is hard. Good for them. Like I've done that. It's
Mhm.
it's hard. It's way harder because not everyone wants a phone. You got to love what you're selling. And I'm fortunate enough that my job is something that people want to buy. And it's a pretty easy sell. Hey, oh, you want to be on at halftime at Sunday Night Football? Well, yeah. If you give me the right price, sure. You know what I mean? It's more of finding the right price than trying to get them to be interested. If that makes sense.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty good advice. If you want to get into sales, you got to find something that people want and something that you believe in. If you're
Mm-hmm.
just selling some bullshit door to door that you don't even believe in and you wouldn't even buy, then why would you think other people would want to buy it?
I mean, the big fields of sales that I think are easy, people make a crap ton of money. There's like my industry, the media, sports, because it's just always going to be there. It's entertainment. But then there's
Yeah.
the medical sales, and then more in like technology sales, more like that.
Fast.
Those are great because people need them. You're always going in. There's people do sales and things that like at some point the robots are going to take care of it. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
don't always need all these things, but there's always going to need medicine, always going to need technology. Humans are always going to need entertainment of some sort. So those are the three. If I was telling a younger person in sales to get into something that people need and that will never go away. They'll never stop being commercials or ads. They'll never stop being sports. They'll never stop being X-ray machines that need to be sold. If
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. So and find something that you enjoy. I sold cell phones 2 years ago at AT&T. It was horrible. I don't care about cell phones. I don't know about cell phones. And it sucked. I was miserable every day, right? And if I've learned anything is I'm very new in my career, and I'm like, damn, I gotta start investing because I gotta retire because work sucks. Like no matter my job is fun, but work sucks. Like you have to love it. You're not gonna make it if you don't love it because it's not just 9 to 5. That's a lie. It's nine until you close your eyes. It's always on your mind. There's always an email. There's always a text. It's your job. Like it sucks. You gotta enjoy it a little bit. So find something that you enjoy.
Yeah, that's definitely true. People think they're gonna lollygag their way around into the career and end up making a whole bunch of money. It's like that's not even fucking close. If you want to be super successful in any given field in business, if you want a whole bunch of money, there's like three ways you can go about it. Number one, you can inherit it, which let's be honest, that's not none of us. So
No.
let's forget that. Secondly, you could be really freaking good at one thing, so like a pro athlete, which that's probably none of us either. Or you could actually just outwork and out hustle and out learn everybody and work your way to the top. So you got to
hmm
choose what assets you've been given and how to make the most of it. And you can't just like, come on, like you can't just sit around and scroll on TikTok all day and think you're going to make a whole bunch of money. It's just never going to happen.
No, we live in like a victim. Everyone's a victim. Everyone like
Yeah.
it's you have to earn it. Like nothing's get. It's you're not 8 years old anymore. Like no matter what you're doing, whether it's work or playing on a sports team for a starting position when you're 10 years old, like you gotta earn it. Nothing's handed to you because there's what is it, 8 billion people now that don't really give a shit. Like, they don't care that you're sad and that you want more money. They don't care. They earned it. You know what I mean? Like the people above me and my company, like if I'm sad or complaining, they'll be like, dude, like we all did this. Earn your spot, man. Like no one wants to hear you bitch because everyone's been through worse.
Yeah, you gotta grow up at some point.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people nowadays.
Gotta
Dude,
be intentional. Gotta actually have a reason behind the things that you do. I think most people's failures don't come from laziness or overtly choosing to do the wrong thing. It comes from apathy and not even taking the initiative to find out what the right thing is, and just sticking with the status quo, and just not even being satisfied with your current situation, just not even thinking about your current situation. Like, be intentional, be introspective, and sometimes, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, Jones, sometimes it hurts to be really critical on oneself, but I mean,
mm,
it's gonna be your only way up. And then once you start to really take action and take the steps you need to take, you starts to become a lot more clear, and then you gain back that sense of going somewhere.
yeah.
I know that's all super abstract, everything I just said, but you got to start with the abstract in order to eventually have an actual focused life.
Yeah, you gotta have a goal and then reverse engineer how you're gonna get there. So you gotta start with an idea or a goal or a place you want to be, and then all right, let's take steps backwards and see how can we get there and how can we do it as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, and people, sometimes you gotta go backwards, you go forwards, and I think a lot of people think that, especially in like a work environment, like a corporate environment, that, to be successful, you just go from A to B. It's not how things work. I mean, there's that one less than 1% that whatever, they just do great in work, they get their first job, they get promoted, everything just works out and they're at the top, they're fine. But the 99.99% of the world, it's not A to B, it's you get a job, you might get fired, you might try 3 times for the same promotion, not get it, switch jobs, not get a promotion there, switch jobs, and like you never know. Like, oh, you can get promoted, but you got to go move. Like your whole kids and wife now need to go to, I don't know, some shitty place like Los Angeles or
Statesboro,
something. I don't know,
Georgia.
or Statesboro, Georgia, sure.
Yeah, it's definitely, and at the same time, guys, everyone that's listening, everyone on this call, especially, like, guys, it's within us to be as successful as you want to be. You just got to believe and have confidence in yourself. And, like, you can criticize people like Elon Musk or Donald Trump for a lot of different reasons, but one thing they have in common, it's like they have an idea and they know for a fact if they are given the resources and the time to accomplish it that they're going to fucking do it and no one's going to stop them. And whether or not you agree with their policies and the way they go about it, they have that confidence. And you know you got to have that too. Like, everyday people can do incredible things if you actually just get to it and start taking action.
Yeah, confidence is everything. People, I think this was Deion Sanders that just said this. It's pretty true, but like confidence nowadays is looked at as an ego, which to an extent it can be.
Mm-hmm.
You everything is confidence. You have to speak things into existence. Confidence is just believing in yourself. To an extent, I was confident in like so many aspects. Again, I told you this job I have. I'm super proud of myself. It's it's an amazing job. Like that's not me being cocky or like throwing it in people's face. I should be proud of myself. I'm working at the biggest media company in the world doing my dream. But I don't think I'm the smartest person in the world. I know that. I probably have the lowest IQ of the 3 people in this podcast right now. See, I do have the lowest IQ. But if the one thing that anyone would ever say about me, and I'm sure there's people that say, oh, his ego is too big or he was always kind of cocky, which I'm sure I will. Like, yeah, I know that sometimes like I can be cocky and ego, but I always believed in myself. I spoke things into existence. Before I had actually accepted this job, I had told people for weeks that I had the job. Not because I was trying to like lie about it, because I was like, I know I'm gonna get this. Like, I know I've got this. I have confidence in myself. I'm gonna act like I have it so when it happens. And then it happened, and it was like, that's a great feeling. Like, I believed in myself, I knew it. And if it didn't happen, then yeah, you risk looking like an idiot. But I would have been like, yeah, you know what? I thought I had it. And it sucks, but I don't. But I got it, and it was truly just like willing yourself. Sometimes you gotta just will yourself. I was so tired of phone calls that weren't going anywhere or not getting jobs. Just gotta will yourself through it sometimes. Find that extra gear, and at some point, every human being that has ever walked this earth, at some point you catch a break. And sometimes it seems like it's not gonna happen. No matter how shitty your life is, at some point you're gonna catch a break. You just have to like make it there. You gotta will yourself. You gotta put yourself in the opportunity to catch the break. If you play victim, and no, you're not gonna catch a break if you just quit. Put yourself in a situation where something good can happen.
Yeah, just like with gambling, if you give up, then you're never gonna hit that big jackpot
Dude,
and win it all
The
back
little,
and
the little
more.
dude with the pickaxe in the cave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
like
The
what? Yeah,
diamond.
it's like that meme where you're like, yeah, the pickaxe, but then it's like Pornhub, and you're like trying to get to the next page. Like the next one's gonna be a good one,
That's funny.
That is
Yeah.
crazy too, speaking things into existence. I don't know if we live in a simulation, but I
It
can't really think off
works.
the top of my head, but there's so many times where I'm like, this is like I'm not even like this is gonna happen, but I'm like, man, this could really happen. And then it ends up happening like every time. I don't know if it's a subconscious thing where when you say something you actually start
Totally.
to believe it and then it manifests, or if we just live in a simulation and nothing's actually real.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
as a
my
no,
theory
you're
would be that there's probably a little bit of simulation programming going on for sure, but
The
when you
Matrix.
start to speak things into, quote unquote, into existence, you're going to take a lot of little actions that are more in line with that thing actually coming to fruition. So for example, I mean, if you tell all your buddies that you got this job in Chicago, and in reality there's that one last phone call to really seal in the position,
which is what it
and
was. Yeah.
you're gonna follow up, and like you're gonna be on top of that, and you're gonna be ready for that call, because now the stakes are higher. Like you want
Yeah.
to make sure you can lock that
You've
in.
taken risk.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, on a smaller scale, basically what you're doing is you're placing is you're betting on that outcome. And I think a lot of times all we need to do in order to get something that we really want is to wager on it. And that doesn't necessarily have to be money, of course, not literally gambling, but I mean it's invest some time, invest some of your headspace into it, and just like really put something on the line for it, to where if it doesn't go your way, things won't be good for a little bit. Of course you'll bounce
Hmm.
back, but like just go all in for something, and be intentional about actually making it happen. And what that really plays out to, a lot of times, you don't always need a plan B. A lot of people, they like doing things in plan A, plan B, plan C. And I'm sure you'll hear a lot of success gurus talk about this. If you can just really commit to a plan A and quit being so worried about setting up your ducks for the plan B, the plan A is probably going to be more likely to happen. So maybe that's, I think that's what's going on when you speak something, and then you want it to happen, and you're talking about it and you're thinking about it. You're the back of your mind is just going to make you do the things you need to do to get it. So I think if you're conscious of that whole mental dynamic, and you're conscious of that, that power you have, for lack of a better word, that's when you can actually start to use it. But I mean, if you don't even realize that it's there, then life will just happen to you, and you won't have any say.
Yeah, you gotta invest in yourself. Like I don't I don't think, and kind of off of like the relationship question you asked, I don't think all those years that I like loved myself, which is probably part of why it never worked out, but I didn't invest in myself. Like I didn't bet
Hmm.
on myself. I was just kind of like going through the motions. And I think over this past 6 months, I've realized I've realized really three things. The first thing is control the controllable. Like
Yeah.
you can only control what you control. You can't let outside people, factors change because there's nothing you can do about it. All that's doing is hurting you. It's setting you back. The second thing is like your body, like I said, you have to invest in yourself. You have to believe in yourself, invest in yourself, put yourself in the right opportunity, the right spot. And the third is the mindset of, and you hear it with like the Kobe's. It kind of goes back to the same thing where it's who's taking the last shot. And yeah, I'm not the best basketball player. I'm not the best at this. I'm not the best salesman. I'm not the best. But if I get a choice on who gets to take the last shot or who gets to do this, like I want it to be me. Like you have to have that mindset. Like I can control what I'm doing. I can't control what he's gonna do. Put it in my hands. Like let me prove you wrong. Let me show you. And most of the time, you're capable of more than you think. But you'll never know if you kind of just pass it on. I used to do that with my brothers. I thought I was too stupid to ever actually take control of any situation when it came to school or, work or anything, sports, even sports. Like, I was always like, no, like, they're better. You got it. And now I'm like, no,
Right.
give me the fucking ball. Like, let's go, Like, if I fail, at least it's on me. If I fail, I don't have a finger to point at. At least I can
Yeah.
say I'm the one that failed. I'll take the blame for it. But when you do that, you got to hold yourself accountable, which is the difference I
Relentless
think you
by
have to be
Tim
doing.
Grover. Go read it.
Relentless by Tim Graver. Just wrote that down on my hand.
Another thing with, and I'll give you the basketball analogy, with actually taking the shots instead of sitting back and let other people take the shots for you. So I've kind of played basketball on and off for some of my life. I played in middle school on a really good team, and I wish I played a lot more ball because now it's fun to play as you're older and you can't, suit up and play football, or if you
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to find a baseball field and have a whole bunch of people pitching and hitting. So basketball is a really fun sport and I like it a lot, but I didn't really play it when I was really young. And so I would always let other people shoot because I didn't have confidence in my abilities and my shot taking. But just recently, the past year or so, I've been like, just, all right, forget it. I'm going to just take shots when I think I have a decent percent chance of hitting. And as I take these shots over and over again, what ends up happening is I get better at taking those shots and I get better at taking shots in general. So you have to be able to take on that risk. And when you take on that risk, you actually get better at doing the things that you're actively doing instead of just sitting by and letting other people do them for you. So
You
there's
build
another nuance to
confidence,
that. Yeah.
right? There's
And
the
then you get more and
confidence
more
aspect.
confident as you get better. So it stacks on top of each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You guys have any questions for me? And
I guess we'll kind of wrap it up here, Jones. Any closing remarks? Any advice for a freshman college person or someone that's
yeah,
graduating right now?
yeah.
Young people in the world that are addicted to gambling and TikTok.
I can't help you with the gambling aspect. I'm a degenerate myself. But two things: there's the personal side of life, and then there's the work life. Um, I'll say this: when you're at work, I don't have a family yet. I don't have a girlfriend or kids, but when you're at work, be at work. Get the job done. And when you're at home and you're with your family, be with your family. Like it's not everyone dies one day. Don't be the person that's always at work, but don't be the person that's only having fun with their family. Find a balance. When you're at work, be at work. When you're with your family, be with your family. Along with that, when it comes to personal just living, and I kind of talked about it earlier, be a good person. Like especially with your friends. Don't be a shitty friend. Don't be someone that people don't like. Don't I can say with every single one of my friends, they would all take a bullet for me. And that's a great feeling to have. And I would take a bullet for every single one of my friends because I know that I would have it in return. I know that not one friend that I have that I call a true friend would ever you know, the term like stab me in my back, but they would never do me wrong. Like people that you love, that you actually care about. So be a good friend. Friends are everything. When you start working and you've had a long ass day and you got your ass kicked all day, it's nice to have friends to text and be like, hey, I got my ass kicked today. And they're like, yeah, LOL, me too, dude. Like, it's nice. You have to do it. You're gonna lose your sanity. So take care of your friends. They will take care of you. Same way that when your girlfriend or something like is cold and you give them your jacket, like the whole like the basic being a good dude. Same with your friends in the aspect of if they're hungry, make them some food. And don't be the guy that's like, hey man, you owe me $4. It's okay. Like if you don't ask for those $4, they will understand, and more than likely, if they're a good friend, like they'll get you back. At every point, someone needs help. Just help.
Yeah.
Be the person to help because you're gonna need help one day.
Tuck the homies in at night.
Yeah. What goes around comes around.
Take care of your boys, man. Sometimes all you got is the fellas. So like, take care of each other. Yeah, you're back. I was broke for so long. My friends were rich, and like I love them for this. Like, we went out to dinner. They paid. We got drinks. They paid. Never once was it, hey, can you bet me $22 for those 3 beers? It was, hey, man, one day when you're successful and rich, you'll get me. I understand. Like, it's fine. We went on a ski trip to Colorado where I didn't really have that much money. They fronted me $1,200. And I didn't even pay it back before we went. And then they bought me dinners up there. They're like, you'll get me back. I understand. I mean, I did. For something like that, pay your friends back. Don't be the guy that doesn't do that. And I paid them back. But trust your friends. They're your friends for a reason. Take care of them. And one day when you're old and people start dying, which sucks, it might just be you and a couple friends that you hopefully have kept along. So that's that side. Work side, keep work, grind. It sucks. It's hard, but you have to do it. Just remember that everyone's done it. Everyone's been the shitty intern at some point.
With that, let me close with a little story. There's a guy traveling along a path and he sees an old wise man. He goes over and he asks the old wise man, hey, what's more important, the destination or the journey? And the old wise man looks at him and says, no, it's the company.
Wow. That was the most Danny thing I've ever heard. That was something.
You mean
well,
like,
we're here.
Like people company, right? Not like
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like getting a good company job or something.
No, the company the people.
With you. Yes, it's true, man. It's all about. That makes a little more sense. Now we're getting somewhere. But yeah, to all the before I leave, to all the people in Statesboro, the Pledge Brothers, like I know I'm not down there. We don't stay in touch that well for the most part. But anyone ever needs anything, anyone that's watching this, like, give me a call,
That's
man.
got to this minute mark.
Yeah, like I like helping people. If you ever need help and you're in a hole or you want to get into an industry that I'm in, I'm pretty low right now, but at some point, sure, I'm always down to help. I want to see everyone succeed for the most part. Some people don't. But
give out a helping hand.
Text me, give me a call. Love you guys, and you got my number.
Well, thanks, Anthony, for joining us today. We're here lifting off towards stratospheric success, and we're glad to have you along the ride with us. If anybody else wants to be on the podcast and has an interesting story like Jones, let us know. Send us a DM or an email, and we'll get you on. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Bradley Christian.
Bradley will be on at some point, hopefully.
Okay,
and
cool.
Mac.
Word. Yeah, and Pacey. Pacey's got to get on here.
All right, see you.
All right.